All right, folks, here we are. It's Fantasy Football Now. I'm Tito, Jeff Fidoff. Follow me on the X at Fit Happens. He is Chad Rink. Follow him on the X at Chad Ochorinco. We are on Fanstream Sports, powered by DSP Media. You can follow us on the website, fanstreamsports.com. The app, which you can get on Apple or Android, the Fanstream Sports app. Check that out as well. We also have round-the-clock programming on there. Great new show Scott Hamilton put out there. Make sure you check that out. Also, Fantasy Sports Facebook group to interact with the hosts and other fans as well. And Chad, you are a man of deep faith, and so I don't want this to sound sacrilegious, but it's Christmas Eve. Okay, it's like this is what we got tomorrow. Maybe it's Thanksgiving. Maybe Saturday is Christmas Eve, because then we got the full slate Sunday, right? Maybe that's better, right?
Yeah. We got it's the like, I don't know. Maybe it's just like you get the one Christmas present before Christmas kind of deal with the Thursday game, and it's a good Thursday night game. But yeah, Saturday night, like a full slate of college football, and then it's boom, first right week. That first Sunday is always the best too. It is so great because you still think your team can win it all.
They can. It's undefeated right now.
Exactly. And then by 140, you're like, I'm done.
Right. Once Brady goes down with that first half injury, your season's over at that point. Not to jinx it, but we got the Travis Kelce injury right now too. We're dealing with and at first you're okay. Hyperextended knee, might not play, but then the other thing comes out: hyperextended knee. They think the ACL is intact, and that's where it starts to freak me out a little bit, right? But I'm glad I've got very little Travis Kelce draft stock. Like, I don't have much stock in Travis Kelce this year because I didn't draft. I wasn't going to spend a first round pick on him. I don't know if you do or not. You and I both did, combined probably 100 different live drafts, and I did not draft Kelce that much.
I personally have zero Kelce, and I drafted him. I never drafted him at all. Just I couldn't.
Yeah.
I never really got a tight end premium either, and I would rather just go Andrews. But yeah, it's interesting because I guess I heard that that the ACL is intact. So my 16-year-old last year in basketball, he came down hard on his one knee, getting a rebound during a preseason game. We weren't sure because it was sore and he was hurting him. He limped around and basically got almost a double-double like the rest of the game. But we're like, so went to specialists and that kind of thing, went to the chiropractor, did some stuff, found out it was just a bone bruise. But I can see how they can maybe think at first, because it kind of acts like that, because he was like, oh man, this does not look good, the way he's just gingerly limping and walking and running. So that's good news if you own Kelce and a Chiefs fan, and just as a football fan to watch him play. So sounds like good news is he's playing tomorrow night, because we're taping this on Wednesday, and he'll have basically 10 days. So even if he misses game 2, it get him a good 20 days to be good for the rest of the season if it's just kind of a bone bruise.
You're talking about Kelce or son on this one with the 20 days?
Kelce, no, my son.
My son.
No, my son came back. He was a sophomore. He eased his way back in. They had him on JV for a little bit, and then the one game he dropped like a 20 and 15 and a half, and then I think they realized, let's move him on. And they ended up getting in a starting. It was so weird. My one son started at the beginning of the year, and then they moved him to the bench, and then my other son was on the bench at the beginning of the year, and then they moved him and starting, and then he ended up being like 7th leading rebounder in Pickaway County, and he missed probably the first 6 games, not playing a ton. So big news for him. He's only a junior this year, so hopefully see how he goes. But yeah, it was a little scary at first, because like, man, if he tore his ACL or something bad, it was scary.
So you and I now, I believe, draft season's over. For us, it's kind of like, if you remember the scene in Wedding Crashers when Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn are sitting on the steps there, and they're like, oh, it's a hell of a season, they're toasting each other as the sun's coming up or whatever, that's kind of how we're at right now, because we are now officially done with draft season. And like I said, this is no lie. I think I probably did 50, maybe not 50. I probably did, close to 50, I guess, live drafts when it's all said and done. And not to mention the countless mock drafts we did. And so we're at that point now, Chad, we can reflect. I mean, you did a ton of drafts as well, and you did more mock drafts than I did. But so what do you take away from the drafts this season? What do you like strategy wise? Is anything surprise you? Is anything like from the first draft you did till the end? Was there anything surprise you about it in there?
I think it's just surprising how often Kelsey was just always going almost top 5, 7. Because if you look at him, last year was just kind of think of an anomaly that he just was so much better than everybody else. Because if you look at the past, most of the time it hasn't been that big of disparity between 1 and 2 at tight end. Mm-hmm. So I think that was just weird that like just everyone bought into, hey, let's just draft this, mid 30-year-old tight end as a top 5, 7 pick. So that always like just shocked me. I think it's just weird. I think sometimes with how like Bijan too, it's like, I know he's a shiny new toy. I love Bijan, but he rarely on a standard and even PPR, he rarely made it out of the first round. And
I never saw him make it out of the first round. Never did.
No. In the one draft I did down in Cincinnati, I had the 8 pick out of 10. We had a weird one this year. It was like bigger run on quarterbacks in the first round. So I had 8, and I almost went Bijan at 8. I went Tyreek at 8, and I was able to get Bijan in the second round. So I was happy with that. But like just the fact that, and it's not like he's got the backfield to himself. So as much as I like Bijan and think how talented he is, people were buying the hype on him. So that was it. Other than that, just how it's just so weird. Like Breece Hall was still getting drafted a couple rounds higher than Dalvin Cook, even after like he came in. Even these last couple ones, like you could still get Dalvin usually 2 rounds later than Breece Hall. So those are just some things. And then the big takeaways are usually once the season starts and you realize, you can win doing robust RB with 2 RBs in the first 2 rounds. You can win with 0 RB. It just depends on if your guys stay healthy. And listen, we study more, and the people that are experts study more and do a lot of work. It's still a lot luck. It really is.
Yeah.
On how teams play. Like I go back to Calvin Johnson that one year where he had 6 receptions where he got tackled inside like the 1.
Right.
And he didn't score. So there's just so many different things. And you're going to start cussing out coaches because they give it to a fullback on a 1st and goal at the 1 and stuff like that. Or, so a lot of it's luck. So as much as you want to try to think you're an expert, you and I are experts, like it's just trying to assess the scoring system and try to assemble the best team. And then the key is always too, the draft's just one part of it. Then it's just the waiver wire and trades, because that's really where you win your leagues. That's
a big part of it. Yeah, the Travis Kelce thing, and that was a trend. Yeah, Kelce obviously never made out of the first round. I never saw Bijan Robinson get out of the first round. In probably 98% of the drafts I did, the first 2 picks were wide receivers. It was Jefferson and Chase in some order. It seemed that's the way it always was. Yeah. Even in non-PPR leagues, those guys were still going first overall.
Yeah.
I did find, Chad, I had an auctions night that I did where I could tell when it was the first auction for a lot of guys. And I'm not saying I'm an auction genius or anything like that. I don't think I knocked out of the park. And I think I did okay, better than average. But, I sat back and waited like I have done. I've done that probably in every auction this year. There's one auction where I got one of the first 10 players off the board. But other than that, I was usually one of the last guys to get a player. And so the auction thing, it's like, and maybe I'll be wrong. I'm going to look back at all my results this year and see how I did. But the auction thing is interesting, though, with when you're waiting, if you're patient, if it pays off or not. That was the other thing. But the receivers at the top of the draft, Kelce, Bijan not making it out of the first round. Jahmyr Gibbs from Detroit seemed to surge in the last couple of weeks or so. He was going a lot higher than he had been earlier in the draft process. So that's another one. Rookie running backs like those 2 guys, and then the other young ones like Rashad White, James Cook. I was able to get good value on them all the way through, and I think those that like good value on running backs. Even I wasn't spending the big money on the guys like Chubb and Barkley and spending high draft capital like Derrick. I don't think I drafted Derrick Henry ever this year in any of my drafts. I stayed away from him in everything I did.
I did too. He was one of those guys. And I was like you too, where I think I did 14 drafts in like the 6 days that I did drafts. and most of them were auctions. So I did a lot of those, and it was funny because my whole philosophy was like, I don't think I can spend more than $40 on a running back. And I think one time I did on Bijan because I think it stopped at like 52, right? And I'm like, all right, and it's one of those things where you just try to keep a guy to keep bidding him up, and then. Sure. It's not bad if it's a guy you want. It sucks is when you're like, oh, I bid that guy too high on Cooper Kupp and I didn't want him.
Right.
So, but yeah, like I'm like you, like because you could get, Kamara, Cook, Khalil Herbert, Rashad White, all these and Tank Bigsby even, like you could get him for like super, like there were so many running backs. I'm like, okay, I could get like 4 running backs for the price of Chubb. Yep. And so I'd rather I always spent my money on top end wide receivers.
All right, so now when I'm sure people are tuning in now don't want to hear much more about our past drafts we've already done. So now let's get into week 1, right? So now we've got the Chiefs Lions, and we'll do another podcast after this one before the games on Sunday to talk about getting more detailed with rankings. We want to get a few things out of the way though tonight while we're doing this to get ready for Thursday, and looking at the matchups. First of all, do you have any kind of like overviewing kind of like advice when it comes to looking at your team for week 1?
I really kind of just, the main thing is always start your studs no matter what their matchup is. I always have people tell me, well, so and so's in a tough matchup. It was back in the day when like in Aaron Rodgers prime, like I'm thinking about starting, and it was just some like a guy like a Sam Howell type guy because he had a better matchup or something. Right. Like, dude, start your studs always, because most studs are going to be matchup proof. Plus, I always set, what are you going to be more mad about? That you sat Aaron Rodgers, who went off because you put up your QB2 like a Sam Howell that you weren't really sure about, and he went off, or that you started Rodgers and he had a bad game. You're always going to be more mad that you didn't start the guys you spent up for. So that's the big number one. The guys you got, start the studs. And then I kind of I sometimes depend. I look at weather a little bit when it comes to passing attacks, those types of things. And then just really matchups. And so you got to watch sometimes like, oh, this team's got a good matchup. They could end up winning by 20 and just kind of milk the clock at the end, maybe pull their starters late. Or, a lot of times you get these young rookie quarterbacks like Baltimore, for instance, is going up at home against Houston. They could get a pick 6, and the defense score because these rookies, are still trying to learn stuff. So they could get up early with defensive touchdowns. And then even though they score, 35, 38 points, 14 came because of defensive touchdowns. So you got to watch that too. So I always try to look at games that are just going to be shootouts. Like the game tomorrow night, I like the Miami and the Chargers game on Sunday. So I look at those games that are going to be competitive and high scoring. And if I have guys in those games, I'll try to put them in if I can.
It's funny you mentioned the weather thing, and that's something I used to pay a lot of attention to. I backed off of it a little bit only because it's the way the game has evolved and the effectiveness of the quarterbacks. Weather doesn't matter too much anymore, in my opinion, and plus the condition of the fields. Yeah. First of all, you got domes, more domes than you had, 30 years ago. But on top of that, the field is not the one they share with the baseball team. You know what I mean? They can get like crazy muddy. Right. It's like you can watch some of these older games and you see, the guys where you can't tell what color their jersey is because it's so covered in mud. That never happens anymore. No. And so I think I used to overthink weather, and I don't know if I underthink it, if I don't take it into account as much as I should now, but it's not as big of a factor for me. A wind, a swirl, like a really strong wind, I'll pay attention to that when it comes to my quarterbacks. But by and large, like it just seems like, even in the cold in Green Bay, Favre and Rodgers put up great numbers, and Brady did fine in New England and Foxborough and some of those games. And, it seems to me like the weather, I'll look for the rain and wind, but it's not nearly as important as it used to be. I think I used to way overthink that.
Yeah, that's true. Like that's mostly the wind. I think of that was it the Bills Patriots game where that wind was blowing so hard. Yeah, the Patriots threw the ball 3 times. Right. So that's a big one. Or if it's a month, like I remember that Bears game against the Niners where we should have lost, but because the weather, the Niners weren't very effective. So those are like it's got to be extreme. Like if it's drizzling, no biggie. You know, those types of deals.
All right, so let's go over a few starts and sits maybe for week one that you've got on guys you're looking at as far as, and I know that, yeah, you're going to play your studs. And so we're not going to go through, obviously, our entire rankings list right now. But,
Right.
Give me some guys who you like this week as far as, I'll tell you, give me your top three. Who do you think your top three quarterbacks are going to be? Do you have that maybe by chance? By the end of the week, who do you think is going to be the top three scoring quarterbacks this week? Is it chalk?
The first week, I don't think it's chalk. I saw something though, like Pat Mahomes' first games over the last 5 years.
Opening week, he's awesome.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. Like he has not thrown an interception in the last 5 years. So,
yeah.
And I think Detroit's defense is better, but I think they're going to have to throw it out. So I think Mahomes will probably be one. Plus, he's a Thursday night. I always love prime time. Anytime I can get a prime time guy in. I do kind of like Trevor Lawrence this week. They're in a dome in Indy. Indy's not good, but I don't think Jacksonville is the kind of team that's just going to be able to roll somebody. So I think that game can be a little bit more high scoring. So I think Trevor Lawrence is good. And then I like both Tua and Herbert. I think that game's just going to be the highest scoring game. There's a lot of big talent in that. So Herbert, Tua, Mahomes are going to be the top three. So it's not really chalk, I wouldn't think. I think Fields could struggle a little bit because I think Green Bay.
No, it's not chalk at all.
No.
Yeah.
And I mean, so it's just, and none of those guys are really like running quarterbacks either, which is weird. So I think I like those guys a lot. I would stay away from any of the rookies, until we see what they are later on.
I think Mahomes is going to be the number one quarterback this week. I do agree with that. After that, I think I like Lawrence. I do like Trevor Lawrence probably having a big game for them. And then for my third one, I'm gonna roll with Jalen Hurts for Philadelphia going at New England. I know New England's defense is good, but I think that Hurts though, he's on such a trajectory right now with how much he grew last year to now. I like the fact where the Eagles are at, and I think that he's got plenty of opportunities to score against that Patriots defense. So that's where I'm going there. Is there a big name quarterback that's typically a top 10 guy that you are staying away from this week?
It's kind of somewhere. I think it's going to be Josh Allen this week. I mean, they're playing Monday night, so this could be like if you have him, you're relying on him. I'm telling you that Jets D is for real, and I think Sauce Gardner can lock down Diggs, and then you just got Gabe Davis and a rookie tight end. We're not sure what Cook is. I think that Jets defense can stifle them. So I'm not saying that the Jets will win, but if you tell me that game's 20-13. How many points is Allen really going to get? So he's a guy I'd still, if you drafted him, I would start him unless you just happen to have a really good backup that's probably, QB2 that's been playing for a while. Like if you had Geno Smith, I would probably take Geno, put Geno in, because I think he'll have a pretty decent game. But I think Allen's one that's probably going to have a rough outing week one.
I think Burrow could struggle at Cleveland. I think he's still going to be top 10. So I'm kind of almost like going against myself when I say it, because I said out of the top 10, I gave you that caveat, not myself. I think that Burrow will finish closer to 10 than he will to 5. And I think Cleveland's going to have, I think their defense is going to give him problems. I don't know if he's 100% healthy yet. On the road in Cleveland for him, I think. So I think Burrow's closer to like the 8, 9, 10 range than in the 5, 6, 7 range as far as week one goes. But, I still, obviously I like him a lot. He's still a must-start guy. But I just don't know if he's going to be, I don't think he's going to be top 5 this week. So let's go over give me a couple of running back guys that you like this week that maybe are, under the radar a little bit, or guys when they were drafted, you probably wouldn't expect them to be in the starting lineup week one.
Okay. And I hate to say this, but Aaron Jones,
okay,
they're in Chicago. That Bears defense is not good. It's gotten better from last year. It's not good. Right. Aaron Jones always seems to have one of these games where he'll catch for 2. Right? If Aaron Jones could have 3 touchdowns, I think he'll be one where he could be a top 5 just because I think he out of the backfield with receptions, and he could score multiple touchdowns. So I like him, and I'm telling you, I dig Bijan this week. They're playing Carolina, and they're at home, I believe. Yeah, they're at home, so why not show off?
Atlanta's hosting Carolina.
Why not show off the new toy for the fans at home, get them excited? They're just going to let Kyle Pitts block. So Bijan, I have a little like parlay, and one of the three legs is Bijan 2+ touchdowns. So
really,
yeah, I just like he could bust one off against that one, and then I think they'll use him a lot this first game because they're at home. Panthers aren't good, so I like the two of them. And I think a sneaky one, I'll give a shout out to my brother because he called me when I was driving my one son and his wife back home after the rehearsal dinner we had for my sister-in-law's wedding Saturday. So he's like, am I crazy starting David Montgomery in the flex over George Pickens? And I'm like, no, because Pittsburgh's playing San Francisco. And I just think that game tomorrow night's gonna shoot out. And I think Montgomery can have a decent game. So I think Montgomery could, even though I know Gibbs is like their shiny new toy. But I think Montgomery's going to get a lot more use, especially early in the season, and have maybe that like a Jamal Williams type role. So I think those three are some to think about.
But with Montgomery, don't you agree that if they're down by the goal line, they're going to give it to Montgomery? You know what I mean? Like Montgomery's more likely to score than Gibbs is, in my opinion. I don't know what the odds are on it, but like just looking at it logically for me, I'm thinking they're going to trust the veteran more when they're in a goal line situation. Not that Gibbs couldn't put it in, but I think that they would go with the more trusted veteran, though, in those situations.
Yeah, they did that last year. And if you look at David Montgomery, when he came out of college, he had one of the higher missed tackle rates of anybody coming out of college. Like I said, I love Montgomery. I'm glad we did not overpay for him because Montgomery's a guy, he will get you 3 to 3.5 yards almost every play. And when you're in the goal line, that's what you want, a guy that's just going to pound it in, be able to be a little bit elusive and get in the end zone. So I do like that with him, especially if you're in it's more of a touchdown heavy league, but I mean, touchdowns are always going to be gold. So I think tomorrow too, I think I think the Lions Dan Campbell's smart enough to realize, hey, listen, we can't get in a shootout with them, and he'll take his chances that are there, but I think he'll want to control the clock as much as he can, and that's going to be just using both. And I think they'll use Montgomery, I think, more in between the 20s too, and you may see them both out there at the same time because he's pretty good in pass block as well.
Yeah, Mahomes can't score if he doesn't have the ball, so I think the Lions will certainly try to keep him off the field as much as they can. So I do see that as well. One of the guys who I think is going to disappoint is Derrick Henry in Tennessee, and I know we're going to talk later on with some of our bold predictions. He'll come up again, but I think he struggles at New Orleans. I know that they've got DeAndre Hopkins there now, but and Treylon Burks is still now obviously in his second year, but you still have he's in his second year. Ryan Tannehill's in like his 15th year, whatever it is. Right. So there's an offshoot for that right there. I don't think Tennessee's offensive line is as good as it has been in the past. I think that Henry's going to struggle in this game against New Orleans. He's somebody who I'm fading for the week upcoming. Another guy that I'm looking at probably to fade a little bit, Najee Harris in Pittsburgh. I don't know where people drafted him, but he's not going to be a top 10 back on a consistent basis this year. And Jaylen Warren's going to start getting more and more touches from him. He's more dynamic. And I'm not ready. God, this feels weird to say it being a Steelers fan, but I'm not ready to call Najee Harris a bust. But I don't think Najee Harris is going to live up to, I think, what people thought he would be, especially during his first year, what they saw. I think that Najee Harris could end up losing a lot of touches to Jaylen Warren this year.
Yeah, I agree. And they have a brutal matchup. That San Francisco front.
Bosa's back now, too.
Yeah, exactly. So that front four is brutal. They got, what's his name, the linebacker? That's just a beast. Fred Warner, just roaming around back there. So I'm with you, too. Like, I don't think I had a ton of Najee, and I did get a lot of Warren in a lot of my drafts. Mm-hmm. I think they'll use them both. I think Harris is going to be like a David Montgomery type back where he's like, he's solid. But for where they drafted him and what they expected from him, I don't think he's ever, like I said, I just don't think he's that type of back. So that situation, I think, is just going to be a pretty clear 50-50 split where it's just going to be a headache most of the year anyways.
Is there a number 2 wide receiver that you are looking at and saying, what I mean is he's number 2 on his team, who's not the main guy. Is there one or two that you like quite a bit this week that'll get a lot of volume and get in the end zone potentially and all that with the way the games will play out too? But give me a couple of your 2 of your better number 2 receivers.
So I kind of like, and I don't know if he's a 2. Whoever's a 2 in Kansas City, I think Sky Moore is probably the one. I like Sky Moore. I heard, I tell you, we'll get into the showdown and stuff, but Justin Watson, I have this weird thing. He'll pop off tomorrow, but that's just for tomorrow. I do like Higgins because I think the Browns will probably try to neutralize Chase, and Higgins pretty solid. I really think if the Bengals are smart, they put Higgins in the slot because he'd be unstoppable in the slot. So I like Higgins a little bit, and then I do kind of like Jordan Addison. Tampa Bay's not good. And, they'll probably try to, keep Jefferson. So I think Addison's talented enough to do that. So I like the 2 of them probably the most. And then maybe, I hate, 2 rookies was not expected, but Marvin Mims. They're playing the Raiders.
You love Mims.
With Judy being out, I don't know. And, he's a deep threat. I see him being the Tyler Lockett to Russ this year. And I think against the Raiders, I think that game could be sneaky high scoring. And I think he's a good deep threat. So I'm not, he's not going to be a PPR guy, I don't think, but I could see him getting 3 receptions over 100 yards and, finding the end zone. So he could be kind of sneaky just because I think that game can shoot out a little bit. And, I don't think Judy's going to play.
It's funny because I said that question to you. And then if you think about some of the other number 2s, you could look at all these guys Devonta Smith's a stud, right? He's number 2 in Philadelphia. Is the number 2 in Tampa Bay? Who's number 2 in Tampa Bay? Is it Evans or is it Godwin?
Right. Yeah. I think it's Evans. I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Evans also. So in those kind of situations where you look at it, I do love Devonta Smith. I think he'll have a big game against New England. I think that I like Tyler Lockett going against the Rams as a number 2 guy there. He seems to be okay and ready to roll now. And then if you're looking for a deeper sleeper kind of guy, Keenan Allen's number 1 for me for the Chargers, but Mike Williams is a solid number 2. And I think you're going to play him as well. It's funny that as you're looking at this now and, when you look at your rankings and who the number 2 receivers are, there's a lot of times we're taking some number 2s to start over number 1s. I'm not saying the same team, just on another team. Who's the number 1 in Washington? I don't think McLaurin's going to play. I think he'll end up being Dotson. But I'd rather play probably Mike Williams over Dotson. I'd play, obviously, Jalen Waddle over Dotson. I'd play Devonta Smith over Dotson. It's funny how that plays out sometimes, though, where the stud receiver for one team won't play over the number 2 on another team.
Yeah. Yeah, especially Devonta Smith's great because, Belichick's great about – I said Belichick's great about neutralizing the other team's best player. So if they decide, hey, A.J. Brown's not going to beat us, it could be a huge day for Devonta Smith.
What are your thoughts on Michael Pittman for the Colts?
He's talented. I don't know, man. I stayed away from him a lot in drafts. So kind of why I went and got Amon-Ra St. Brown in our league because I didn't want to keep Pittman. I think he'll have a fine year, but it's probably going to be something like 900 yards, 5 touchdowns. Yeah. And so I could find that anywhere.
And then speaking of number 2, also you got Brandon Cooks in Dallas, another number 2 receiver there, who I think could put up pretty good numbers this year.
Yeah, if you look at him in his career, except for last year, he's always put up great fantasy numbers. And then now you got Lamb,
with
Pollard,
bad quarterbacks.
Yeah, with bad quarterbacks. So, and you got Lamb and Pollard that are going to be kind of getting the other team's best cover guys. I think Brandon Cooks could be a sleeper going through, just because I think Dallas is going to throw a ton.
Sleeper or nappy?
He's sleeper.
He's okay. I'm not sure I do all that. Okay, let's slide over to the tight ends now. And look, let's say Kelsey's out and doesn't play. They've got Noah
Gray.
Okay, they got Noah Gray. I'm not saying I don't think he's a starter just because Kelsey's out, right? I don't think you rush and do that, do you?
No, Noah Gray is going to be good for probably like 4 or 5 catches, 27 yards, and maybe a touchdown. Like he'll get a touchdown tomorrow. It's almost guaranteed, but he's not used like Kelsey was used. So that's the other thing you got to look at when a starter goes down. Don't just automatically assume, oh, I'll just put that next guy in. He's going to produce ideally. It just depends on the situation and the team. I'll tell you.
Now, is there
a tight end that I like? Is that what you're going to ask me? I knew it. So, so I tell you. Here's my prediction for the. This is not one of my bold predictions, but it is a bold prediction. Number 1 tight end after week 1. Luke Musgrave, Green Bay.
No, you're not serious. Really?
Here's Christian Watson could miss. Romeo Doubs could miss. I saw a thing where the remaining pass catchers on that team have 112 snaps combined. Bears are bad. Jordan Love got a safety valve. He's going to hand the ball to Aaron Jones. They're going to commit. The Bears are probably going to commit defensively to the run. Luke Musgrave, 135, 2 touchdowns.
Okay,
mark it down.
Okay, but no, you've got it. We got to put the caveat on. If Watson's out, and who else? Romeo's out, right? If they're both out.
If they're both out,
then But if one of them plays, you're not going to stand by that prediction, right?
I will stand by. I'm a man of honor and integrity. I'm going to stand by that since Kelsey's out.
I will.
But Tim Clippett,
I will
135.
With,
Luke Musgrave, 135, 2 touchdowns.
I'll keep rolling with Pat Freiermuth in Pittsburgh. I think that the Steelers are going to throw to him a lot this year. Yeah. I think he's going to be a red zone threat for them. So I think he will be a top 5 tight end this week. That'll be my lock on that one right there. And again, we'll do more rankings talk tomorrow. And God, I hope we don't forget what we said tonight or what we're saying, so we don't look like idiots tomorrow. But let's go through now. I'll tell you, let me give you a few matchups I like. I wrote down a few of these things. I did write down Geno against the Rams.
Yep.
I think that having JSN looks like he's going to be fine to play, a third weapon in there. I think that's going to be good for him. I like the matchup against the Rams. I wrote down Aaron Jones, like you said, against the Bears. I like that matchup as well. I do like Brandon Cooks at the Giants on Monday Night Football. And I also like Darren Waller going against Dallas on the other side. He was the favorite target of Daniel Jones in the preseason. I think that carries over. And I'm also fingers crossed on that one because I do have a lot of stock in Darren Waller in the leagues I've done. And certainly in drafts I've done, he's a guy I went after. So I'm rooting for it. But I do think it's a good matchup for him against Dallas on Monday night.
Yep, I agree with those. And I just would throw in the Jacksonville against Indy and then Minnesota against Tampa Bay as two. I love the Miami and Chargers game too. I think that game. Take the over.
All right, there we go. All right, so you want to do some fantasy bold predictions? Let's each do 5. We'll go back and forth. Do you want to go first or second?
I will go first.
Let's hear your first one.
All right, first one. This is the homer in me. Justin Fields, QB1.
QB1
of the year, yeah.
That is bold.
And I was gonna say and like, semicolon, be the first Bear quarterback to ever throw 30 touchdown passes.
I think top 3 would have been bold, and you're saying 1. Good for you.
Yeah, I think he'll throw the ball more. I think the legs are there. I don't think he probably runs as much, but I would be surprised if he didn't have at least 800 yards on the ground rushing. Touchdowns are just a fluke, but mark him down for 5 for sure. And if he can get the 30 touchdowns, that could get him there.
Okay, my first one. New Orleans defense special teams will finish top 5. I looked at their quarterbacks they're going up against this year. It is sick. They've got a couple of tough matchups, but you've got rookies in at least 4 of the games that I saw. And then you've got Baker Mayfield one week. You got Mac Jones one week. It sets up very nicely for the Saints, and it's another team I targeted in drafts also. I've got the Saints finishing the end of the season. It's all said and done. And we're going to keep track of these 2, by the way. But top 5, though, they'll finish top 5 defense, special teams, and traditional scoring systems there for defense. I think New Orleans finishes there.
I love that. I love that pick. I almost put that the Saints would break the interception record.
Yeah.
And I looked at what it was. Like the interesting thing is with the passing it's been lately, of the top 25 team interception records, like top 25, like 3 of them have only been since 1980. They're all like old.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like 49's record. And I was going to look, and like the Saints only had 7 last year. I was like, there's no way they're getting like 43 more interceptions this year than last year. So I marked
interceptions leader back in the days like Lester Hayes or Jack Tatum would have like 11, and now it's like if you get 6, you're going to lead the league,
which is crazy because they pass more now.
They pass more.
So I love that though. The Saints are one of my favorite defenses to get in drafts too. So, and I wrote this down because I thought we were going to do one last night. So it was before the Kelsey news. So this is like a 2-1. Mahomes not a top 5 quarterback. Kelsey not a top 2 tight end. And that goes in the whole point of the Chiefs aren't making the playoffs. So here's the thing. Mahomes has been like 1 or 4. So I think he's had just as many 4 as 1. I think there's with the running quarterbacks, I think with if you go Fields, Hurts, Allen, those guys are all in there. Right. And then you figure you've got let me look at some of these teams here. Like, Herbert, I do like Herbert. Lawrence could slide in there. He can run a little bit. Daniel Jones, Lamar Jackson coming back. That's the other thing. He was outside the top 5 last year. He's coming back. So I think there's a couple guys that can slide in there. And Burrow, like if Burrow happens to just toss 45 touchdown passes or something like that, he can slide in there. So there's something, I don't know. I just think that's the flag I'm planting is this be anti-Chiefs this year. Super Bowl lull.
Wow. Okay. My second one, I'm going to go A.J. Dillon outscoring Aaron Jones this year. I think Jones starts off strong, but I think that Dillon will end up at some point overtaking him. This feels like a Pollard Elliott situation for me, like last year in Dallas. And I think that A.J. Dillon, because less tread on the tires, more versatile, I think that Dillon will end up at the end of the season outscoring Aaron Jones. And part of that's tied into, yes, I do think Jones might miss a game or 2 in there. I think Dillon's fresher. I think that he'll be the one to outscore. I think in standard scoring leagues, PPR leagues, I should say, Dillon will outscore Aaron Jones.
Yep. I have no problem with that one at all. All right. Third one.
Yep.
Tyreek Hill be the first wide receiver to get 2,000 yards.
Oh, wow.
Even if Tua gets hurt.
Who's their backup? It's not Teddy Two-Gloves anymore.
Skylar Thompson and Mike. I think Mike White will be it, but Tyreek's good.
You still think okay.
2,000 yards.
I will go with Calvin Ridley will be a top 7 wide receiver. And he's going outside. He's like wide receiver 10, 11, 12, something even later than that. I think he finishes top 7 this year. I've heard great things about what's going on there in camp with him and Trevor Lawrence and their connection. And I think that I don't think Ridley's missed a step at all. The break might be good for him. It's not like when a quarterback or like Deshaun Watson takes off for a year and a half or a running back takes off a year and a half, whatever. This is different. I think that Calvin Ridley ends up being a top 7 wide receiver in fantasy football this year.
Yeah, I love that because I targeted him all year, and like he was good. Like it's just people were napping on him, and they're gonna pay if they didn't take a chance on him. So I love that one as well. All right, so this is another one. Right. So I went really bold. Jordan Love, more TD passes and passing yards than Aaron Rodgers this year.
Whoa!
And my philosophy is, I think the Jets are gonna, run the ball more. I think they're gonna, they get some good defenses, and I think Rodgers is gonna have just his normal like the last couple of years where he's gonna be very efficient, not a ton of yards passing, but he'll have those like 225, and then he'll have some games with 4 touchdowns. But really, if you think about it, outside of Garrett Wilson, like, you think anybody else on that team is going to get 5 touchdown passes? Like,
right? Yeah,
that's just it. And so I think Love's going to probably have to pass the ball more. I think that he's got more weapons than Rodgers, and I think Rodgers realizing in the Jets, like, dude, we're here to win, and if they get up early, they'll yank him and stuff like that. And I think Jordan Love would I just think, and touchdown pass is weird too, because like Rodgers could have 24 and Love could have 25, right? And I win it. So that's just what I was just thinking of, because I think they're going to let Love air it out more, and I just think Jets, Rodgers are like, we're just winning games, so let's just do it how we need to do it. And I don't like any of the other talent around them outside of like Wilson and the running backs.
Derrick Henry will not be a top 15 running back.
Wow,
I do not think he finishes in the top 15, and part of it is because of injuries, and part of it is because of effectiveness. And I think that that Henry's going to struggle this year. He's going to be almost 29 years old now. Right, I think what is that now? And so, and when you add in his touches he had in college to what he's had in the NFL, and he's had injuries recently. I think Henry, though, this year, I think you finally see the big drop off. And I would be surprised. I should have said it. I also said I don't think he plays more than 10 games because that's also what I figured into this. That Derrick Henry for me will not be a top 15 running back in standard scoring fantasy leagues this year.
Yeah, I like that, but then I kind of remember when he got hurt with that foot injury. Yeah, like he still led the league in like yards, I think it was, for like 2 weeks after he
right, that's a huge lead, right? Yeah,
which they will run. I think you're right though, because I think they'll try to limit his touches with Tajay Spears there too. All right, my last one.
Yep,
we've already talked about it. Rashad White will lead all running backs in receptions this year, which is kind of bold because McCaffrey's still playing, Eckler's still playing, Barkley's still playing, Bijan is now playing. But I just like he had 50 receptions last year. Fournette had 73, so he was the third leading by a lot because I think Eckler had over 100 last year.
Right.
I don't know, man. I think Baker's there, a lot of dump passes. There's no one really behind him, so I could see him. That's a big stretch because he'd have to probably get like 85, 90. But I'm thinking, maybe the Niners don't use McCaffrey as much to keep him healthy for a Super Bowl run. Eckler's always talked about like, hey, I don't want to be that big of a workload. Right. But the only problem is in LA, they have no one really behind him either. So, and I think Eckler will get hurt this year. I just think he's not that big. So I just I like Rashad White. I've been all on him. So, they're supposed to be bold. I think we're being bold here, not like some, certain things where it's kind of bold. It's mild. These are not mild predictions. These are bold predictions.
They're bold-ish. So, we're doing bold ones. So yeah, some people do bold-ish ones.
So that was my fifth one. Yeah.
Who was the "You Heard Me" guy? Is that Matthew Berry?
Yeah,
you heard me.
You heard me.
I wanted to say it earlier. I couldn't remember who it was that said that. I don't know if he still does it or not, but you heard me.
I haven't heard him do it in a while, but he used to do that.
All right, my last one. Justin Herbert, top fantasy quarterback this year. I think that, look, I'm with you. The fact Mahomes doesn't run might hurt him a little bit. Who knows if he'll have Kelsey, because that could hurt Mahomes also. But I think that Herbert is destined. And Kellen Moore there is the offensive coordinator now. I think they're going to throw the ball a lot. I love the weapons they have. If Allen and Mike Williams can stay healthy, they still have Quentin Johnson you just drafted. You still have Eckler hopefully in there, Joshua Kelly, the other running back. I think that, not to mention the fact you love some of the tight ends as well. So I think that Herbert this year, though, I think he's poised for a monster year. I think he is the number one fantasy quarterback this year.
Yeah, I love that. I think he's top three for sure. I think he'll probably lead the league in touchdown passes. Yeah. And he's kind of at that age now where I think, okay, it's going to kind of all come together, getting Kellen Moore there too. So I love that one as well.
Okay, so the Thursday Night Football now, DFS Showdown you do, where you have your team captain, right, gets 1.5 times their points, and then you got 4 other guys you got to put in there under the salary.
Yep. So that's on.
So let's hear yours, and then we're all going to take it and make money on it.
Okay. So
no pressure.
No pressure. So I'll do one live on here. So captains. So a lot of times you really don't want to put a quarterback at captain unless it's a running quarterbacks, or their name is Patrick Mahomes. So Mahomes is a guy. I think because it's a lot of times you usually try to, if you think Herbert's going to be big, he's not running well, I'm going to put Allen, because if Allen catches multiple touchdowns, he usually can get more and it'll help you out. Mahomes is weird because you really can't put anybody but Kelsey in if you're doing a Chief stack. So Mahomes is one. I'm not going to use him as captain this time, but he's a guy that I would use at captain. That's not a running quarterback. He may be the only one. St. Brown is a good choice, I think, because I think you want a guy that's you think could score the most points, and both those guys can. Gibbs is interesting just because Mahomes at captain is like 18,300 on a salary of 50,000. So that's quite a bit of salary to do there. St. Brown is like a little over 15,000 at captain. Gibbs is a little over 12,000. David Montgomery's interesting. I usually don't like to do running backs unless they're a good pass catcher running back and they're the only guy there, like a Nick Chubb or something like that. So I would probably want to do McKinnon's interesting. But I know I just said, I don't know what Chief is going to be the guy. And you don't want to take a Chief receiver. I am taking a Chiefs receiver at captain. I'm going to put Sky Moore as my captain. Because again, you want to be different. And so if you can, you don't want to goof around with captain, but without Kelsey there, I think it could be even a bigger role for Sky Moore. And I think the Chiefs are still going to, I think Mahomes will still probably have 4 touchdown passes. So I'm going to have Sky Moore there as a captain. Normally, if you put, this is just showdown logic. If you have Sky Moore as a captain, you should always pair him up with, so if you have a wide receiver at captain, pair him up with the quarterback. That should just be it.
Take Mahomes, yep.
I'm putting Mahomes in a flex because he's a lot cheaper there. Most times, 2 quarterbacks in a lineup is usually going to be rare. I usually try not to do it unless it's one of those things where they have one's a running quarterback and you think it's going to be a high scoring game. So I'm not putting Jared Goff in. He's about he's 9,400, which is normally what most quarterbacks are going at that are not elite or crappy. So I'm going those 2. I am going to take Noah Gray in my flex because Noah Gray is only $2,400.
Right.
And so you always are going to have to try to find the value somewhere. And sometimes you could find later on in the year, like this $200 player that if you can throw him in, it's just going to help open up everything else. But I think Noah Gray has been used in the past when Kelsey's been there. So I think those would be my 3. I'm going with a 3-3 build. I think this game's going to be high scoring. I don't think one team's going to dominate the other. So I'm going to go with 3-3 build. And then on the Lions side, I'm going to go with Sun God. He's too good.
Yeah, I'm going
to put him in there. And then I think I'm going to go Dave Montgomery, like Gibbs or Montgomery. Gibbs is 8,200. Yeah, he's going to be in the passing game. I'm just going to take that Montgomery's going to get those goal line touches. And Montgomery's only 6,600. So I've got Moore at the captain, Noah Gray, Pat Mahomes, Sun God, Montgomery. I got one more spot, and I have 11,400. So I could go Goff. I could go Gibbs. I could go. That could be weird, and go Gibbs and Montgomery with that as well. So I don't know what I'm going to do now. Kickers and defense, those are just weird ones. I usually don't do it unless I just have this feel that it's going to be a kick fest. I will not have either one in there. I think to make this a little bit, you know what?
I think I like Goff.
I think I am too. I'm going to put Goff in there because I think quarterback's going to score the most points. And I think he has him and Mahomes both have a chance to kind of run one in too. So I usually don't go double quarterback, but I think this game kind of lends itself to that. Because again, if I was going to go Gibbs, but I thought, well, Gibbs, Montgomery, they're not a good, like, they kind of go against each other on that. So I think I'm going to go Goff. Goff's going to be it. So I've got, and again, the nice thing is I've got $2,000 left over. So that's the other thing in Showdown you want to do is if you can have money left over, because some people just want to spend it all. And the more money you have left over, the more unique you're going to be. So I think with Sky Moore as a captain, both quarterbacks, and $2,000 left over, that's going to be my team. I'm not going to submit it because I don't know what the dollar price was on that. I don't know. It might have been like a $5. I want to make sure it's in a $1 one. I was just doing it on there. I don't want to hit it and like, oh, I just spent like 125. I could always delete it out, but that's it. Sky Moore captain, Mahomes, Noah Gray, Goff, David Montgomery, Sun God.
There you go. I like
$1 million.
I'll go $1,000 on that one tomorrow, Chad. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for that. But okay, now there was something you put on the show sheet that we didn't get to yet. You have a Springsteen question for me.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm a big 80s guy. You're a big 80s guy. We're the same age. You're a huge sports fan, obviously.
Right.
But people know you're a huge Springsteen fan.
Yeah.
Which is why all your teams are Wrecking Ball. It is Wrecking Ball because of the Springsteen album, not Miley Cyrus. Just
go to hell, Jason Rockwell.
We just joke about it, and you may have a coaster that has that on it. But anyway, So Glory Days, one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite Springsteen songs. I'm not a big Springsteen guy.
Right.
Does it bother you as a Springsteen fan and a sports fan that in that song he uses the phrase "throw that speedball by you" rather than fastball?
That does bother me.
Okay.
That does. It's one of the reasons why I don't like the song "Glory Days." It's because of that right there. And when he did the Super Bowl show for the Steelers Cardinals, I think he said he could throw that long bomb or Hail Mary. I think long bomb by you is what he said. He changed it to that for that. And Springsteen's a huge sports fan also. And you see him pitching that game, and like the end of the show, the end of the video, the kid says, "How'd you do?" Nettles got me, bottom of the ninth. That kind of thing. He's a huge sports fan.
Yeah.
I don't know why the hell he would say speedball.
No, because it's the same number of syllables. It's not like he was like, "Hey, I'm going to throw that 2-seam slider by you." Like, no, like Clarence on sax wasn't like, "Hey, pull him aside, hey man, you know." Although I was talking to my brother on the way home about this. I said I was going to ask you this question. He's like, I'm sure someone want to say something, but they weren't because he's the boss.
He's the boss.
Get fired. So it's just always bugged me. I still like the song, but I'm like, it's fastball. Like,
okay. So the other thing that bothers me in sports, though, transitioning a little bit here, and this way, not in another way, but when I never once have asked my dad, or my dad asked me, or my son asked me to have a catch.
Yeah.
You play catch.
You don't have a catch.
Yeah. And in Field of Dreams, they do the have a catch thing. That always pisses me off. It's like I never once said about, "Hey, Dad, let's have a catch." No,
have a catch.
Hey, Dad, you want to play catch?
You want to play catch? Or, hey, do you want to go throw the ball around? Yeah,
all right. I never, ever said have a catch.
No, me neither. I never thought of it until now. So
that
is true. Yeah, it is stupid. So maybe that'd be a new segment. Like, do we just like talk about stupid stuff?
We can do it on that. This has been Fantasy Football Now, and we'll do another one again before Sunday. I promise you, no matter what, because now we're done doing all our drafts. We'll have more time to do it. But it's Fantasy Football Now on Fanstream Sports, DSP Media. Follow me on X at @ThatHappens. Follow him at Chad Ochocinco. And lineup questions, we'll answer those as well. The website is Fanstream Sports. The app, Fanstream Sports app, available for Apple and Android. Round-the-clock programming. Again, Scott Hamilton's got a great new show. Go check it out. The Fanstream Sports Facebook group. Interact with the hosts and other fans as well. Or hate. I don't care. Shell out some hate to us. I don't care if you do that as well. Let us know where we're wrong. But Chad, this is fun. We'll do it again before Sunday. We have to do it with more updates on the rankings. Let's see what happens tomorrow with the Lions and Chiefs, my man.
All right, sounds good.